Welcome back to Sequoia Exotics. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to raise an ant colony from a single queen. So once you catch your queen ant, you're going to want to put in a test tube setup. Both these queen ants here are in test tube setups. The queen on the left is Lasius niger and the queen on the right is, I believe, Campanodus discolor. I'll show you how to create a test tube setup in a moment here, but first, the number one thing you need to do when your queen is by herself in the test tube setup is keep her away from vibrations. Don't check on her too much. I would say check on her from 1 to 2 weeks. You're really going to want to just keep looking at your queen ants, but I strongly advise you don't do that. When I got my first ant colony, I checked on them basically every day. The queen got really stressed out and ate her eggs, and then they eventually died. It was really sad, except for it was a good learning lesson for me. She won't need to be fed until her first worker hatches. Unless she's taking a long time to get workers and she seems to be struggling, then I would feed her a drop of honey or cricket leg. The reason you won't need to feed her during her founding stage is because during her nuptial flight she lost her wings and she kind of makes sort of a self-made soup off of her back muscles that she used to use for her wings. If your test tube for your queen ant gets moldy, you might think that it's a huge disaster, you're going to need to move your queen right away, but really you're not going to want to have to force her to move. It's probably going to be perfectly fine if there's some mold in there. Ants are used to dealing with it. However, if your ant's water supply runs out, that's a bigger problem. Give them access to a new test tube, but don't force it because the ants know what's best for themselves. Well, you're probably wondering why one of the ants' test tubes' cotton ball is open now, but I'm about to feed it some honey. So just use a toothpick or skewer, make sure it's a pretty small dab of honey, put it in there and close the cotton ball. I was feeding this queen because she was struggling and she kept eating her eggs. That's why I recommend, if you're going out and catching queens, to catch a lot of them. Also, that's another reason why I don't think it's a very good idea to be buying queens offline unless it's already started an ant colony, because you're only going to get one, and if it dies you're going to be sad. This is actually an older Lasius niger colony I have, about 8 workers right now. I have the colony in the very far left test tube, and that one started drying out, so I attached a new test tube in the far right. That's where I want them to move into, but I'm just letting them do it themselves. And then in the far right front, I have a sugar water test tube, and that's just an easy way for them to get their sugar. The small outworld you see in the middle, I gave that to them when they had about 2 workers because it startled them too much when I fed them in their nest. Now I'm going to show you how to make test tubes for your ant colony. Make sure you sanitize your utensils, tweezers, and test tube that you're using first. So you're going to need your test tube, obviously, some cotton, and tweezers. This test tube is actually smaller than my other ones I'd been showing earlier. Those ones were from antscanner.com. That's where I suggest you get your test tubes. Fill your test tube up halfway with lukewarm water, like I have here. Hook up some of that cotton, and then put it in just to the test tube like this. Take your tweezers and then quickly push them down into that water line. If there's any excess water, like there's on this one, it's a little bit hard to see, just dump that out. Or another thing you can do is take another cotton ball, push that in there with your tweezers to absorb all the excess water. And it's just going to look something like this. Okay, now stick another cotton ball in right here once your queen ant is inside the test tube. And it's going to be normal for her to normally be on the more humid side because that's how they like it. And she's going to probably lay her eggs right there in the cotton. But once you have her in there, you're set. In this video, we summed up the basics from caring for your queen until she has her first worker. Thanks for watching.